and we have 5 till Rosh Hashanah. So the challenge was, who's in for the 5 Tuesdays straight? So I think that's, wow, a lot of people today. Yeah. Thank you.
You're popular.
How you doing? No, I'm so happy. So Julie, before we get started, should we actually talk about, while we have everyone's attention, should we? Sure. Sure. Okay, for sure.
Thank you.
So we wanted to know, and really it's going so well. We've been going strong on Tuesday mornings at 11 o'clock for over a year. So this is kind of like sacred time. Like everyone knows, Tuesdays, like nothing comes before my Tuesday class. Like, and I really, unless I'm out of town, I've really never missed. So, but some people are requesting an afternoon class. So I see some, it's really going to be hard to please everyone. We don't have any afternoon classes as of now, because usually there's canasta classes here every afternoon. So, so we're just trying to like maybe put it out and see the response. Do you want to raise your hand if you might be interested in let's say Wednesday afternoon at 1:30? In lieu.
Oh no.
Yeah. Seems like everyone wants to stay with Tuesday at 11. Okay. I mean, I'm good with this, but I want to accommodate. There's a few people that are working that don't get off till later. It could be we'll add a class. It could be we'll wait until after the holidays and then add another spot for people that can't make this time. So I wish Julie was here to see that, but really, like, no one wants to move this class. Okay. Is anyone here from the board? Well, Laura, you're here, and yeah, you saw that, right? Okay, you could tell them, because I mean, we're trying to meet everyone where they're at, and and it could be we'll turn it into 2 classes anyways. So I guess time will tell. But I do love this time with you guys. Okay, I'm just gonna look up something. Hold on. Here we go. I just wanted to bring in something that I saw this past week. We had a very small Shabbat gathering this week, and
But it was lovely.
It was lovely. But I felt that we tapped upon something so important in our, here we go. Okay. So this past Shabbat, we had about 10 ladies that came to, well, first of all, hold on. Sorry, one more commercial break. We have some new people here. So we always just say a welcome, Lisa, Jill, and so nice to have you. Really, thank you. I hope this will be the first of many times. You are always welcome here, both of you. Is anyone else new here? Yeah. Oh, that's right. So, Randa. So you guys might know Randa's daughter-in-law, Laura Martyr. She's one of our teachers. So isn't that, yeah, I'm telling you, you have like, she's a pretty famous person here. Everyone loves Laura. And some of you might know Josh, her son, right? He's also spoken here before. Yeah, so we're so happy to have you here. And I don't know if it's like official that they're looking into this neighborhood. So maybe there are some people here that could be of assistance to you, or know of. Are you looking for a house, a condo? And moving from where?
We're in Florida.
Wow. Well, this is a beautiful community. I don't know if you could tell yet, but it is just 100% love. It's unbelievable. Okay, so there's so many people to love here. It's pretty amazing. So I'm just gonna take a step back, because there were only a couple of you here on Shabbat, and we tapped into a very, very important pasuk, a phrase in the Torah, and we had a whole conversation about it. So we're not, for the 10 of you that were there on Saturday, we're not going to rehash the whole thing, but I'd like to start off with it. So it says in the Torah that, okay, I'm just going to read it straight out to you. And you may say in your heart, may my strength and the might of my hand made me this wealth. Okay. God is basically warning us not to get so full of ourselves, right? We're about to enter Israel. This is where we're standing, right? There's lots of, God is kind of like giving us lots of blessings and telling us all this great stuff that we have. We're about to encounter Israel, the land flowing with milk and honey. We're about to become a nation, like, as, we're stepping up in our becoming a people. We're now going to have our own land. We were just slaves 40 years before. And he's like, just don't forget who you are, where you come from, and what it's all about. Because and who he is, that he's really holding the strings. He really has the power, but something might happen in our experience, that something will shift in our mind and we'll think mistakenly that we're in control. And that, I know Susan's like laughing, because isn't that funny? It's a joke, right? That we have any control and that we are in charge of our destiny. Right, it's funny, right? Those that have lived a couple decades are laughing, because things don't always turn out the way, rosy, everything looks so great, and then life happens. So God is basically reminding us not to get full of ourselves, not to become so absorbed in our own might and our own power that we forget. So I put this concept down on the table that we discussed on Saturday, of the balance that we need to find in life of putting in effort and having faith. This is the balance that we could work on this our entire lives, because I don't even know where that perfect balance lies, right? We all know when sometimes we lean too heavily on our efforts and we forget about faith, right? We forget about God because we think we're in control, and we're totally mistaken. And sometimes we put all our faith in God and we may not put in enough effort. And that's not, we have to find that balance. So I'm going to bring in a concept that we've spoken about. This is what we're going to talk about: faith. The topic for today is actually trust. So it's another level of faith. We have faith and trust, and they're two different things. In Hebrew, emunah, we've spoken about that. The root is aim, like a mother, right? The faith, it's faith, right? But it stems from the woman. It's a very feminine trait. And now we're going to be speaking about bitachon, which means security, which means trust. Like a bitachon is like the security guard in Israel will have, it says bitachon on his vest. He's the security guard. So we're going to speak about that in relation to faith, right? These two concepts, and how much we're supposed to have versus how much effort we're supposed to put in. So I'll start by sharing what I'm going through in my life, which is last night we sent my son off to Israel for the year. Now, I grew up in a home where we always spoke about every worst case scenario that could ever happen. And honestly, there's trauma there. There's, it's where my parents are children of survivors. My parents grew up with nightmares, screaming in the middle of the night. That's second generation. I'm third generation, right? It's the trauma. There's actually a gene. There is a marker in the genes of survivors. We've spoken about this, Lori, right? There's total epigenetics. So I don't know if it's because of that, but whatever the case, I grew up in a home where we always worried. And like, I'll give you an example, like before a flight, you're all ready, bags at the door. It's an hour before you're even getting in the car to make your way to the airport. But it's like part of the plan. Like you have to build in an hour of pacing. It's literally just pacing. Like it's all I know. So like you have to build that time. You just have to pace and bite your nails and be worried. So that's how I grew up. So insert, life changes, and God gives you challenges and different people that pull you in different ways and kind of stretch you. So my husband is the complete opposite, and he's not the most timely person. If anyone might notice that, I don't know, it's like services started and he's like the last one to speak in. It's fine, totally works, but we've had to stretch, right? So last night, for example, I wanted to go to the airport like hours before, right? And I would be back for the board meeting, right? But my husband's like, that's ridiculous. What, is he gonna wait there for a whole hour at the airport? I'm like, yes, that's what normal people do. So 2 hours, I'm like 3 hours. It's an international flight. Okay, but it's been a journey to find that balance. There has to be balance. And I have to admit that the way that I was raised might have been slightly unbalanced, right? But the way that my husband was raised is slightly unbalanced on the opposite extreme. So 21 years later, I think we've somewhat come to a medium point, but we still haven't found that perfect balance. And I think it takes a whole lifetime to work on any balance, any character trait that you're trying to balance out, because every good trait has a bad trait. That's what we've been doing all year, working on good traits, trying to weed out some negative traits, right? Okay, so let's put this Emunah continuum on the table. And we've spoken about this before. This is from my Rebbitzin, my teacher, Eliza Bulow. She says, every single person will find themselves on a continuum, okay, of faith, okay? That every person may or may not know, okay, consciously or unconsciously, because some people will say, I don't believe in God, right? There's many people that state, I am an atheist, I don't believe in anything, or whatever they might say. But we all know that deep down, a human being has a need for something higher than themselves, okay? So, you know the saying, there are no atheists in a foxhole, right? Like when you're in that pit, when you're in that pinch, you have no choice but to turn upwards, because you know that you can't control anything, okay? So this is the continuum. There is a God, okay? Translate that however you want, okay? You don't even need to call it a God. There is a higher power. There is something outside of me that is greater than me, okay? Call it what a he, she, it, whatever. Don't get tripped up on the language, okay? That's usually where we get stuck, because, well, it can't be this, can't be that. I don't know what God looks like in your mind. It's not like someone with a long beard. It's not anything that we've been told in Hebrew school. It's your own personal higher power, okay? So whatever imagery is tripping you up, you have to get rid of that. There is a loving God that loves you out there. Your Father in heaven, your mother in heaven, whatever you want to call it, okay? There is a God. He runs the world, okay? She, it, whatever, okay? There is a God. It runs the world. It runs my world. It runs my world for the good, okay? So there's the continuum, okay? I want you guys to just think where you fall, or where you fall in at different parts of your life, because we're not always going to be in the same place on this continuum. There is a God. I think everyone deep down knows there's something higher. There has to be. Otherwise, what is it all about? There's something bigger out there. That power runs the world. Things are not by chance. Nothing is by chance. We don't believe in chance. Everything is orchestrated divinely. It runs the world. It runs my world. Okay, that's HP, Hashgachat Pratit, a higher power in my life. And it runs my world for the good. So that last, the highest level, that God runs my world for the good, is not always easy. We've all been at times in our life where we did not think that. We've all been there, where we've struggled and had doubt and chaos in our head and in our relationship with our Creator. Okay, but I mean, does everyone find themselves somewhere on the continuum? There is a God. He runs the world. He runs my world. That's big. I think a lot of us on the last trip to Israel, when we started really talking about Hashgachat Pratit, HP, that I feel like it opened everyone's mind, because all of a sudden people were saying, but this just happened, and oh, this is HP, and all of a sudden, but it wasn't a language that we used before. So it's interesting how when you're not aware that God is running your world, it's like awareness is a big part of it. Like, just like, really? Like, because then you see things differently, okay? And getting to a place where it's all for the good, that's a very high level, because not everything feels good. So not everyone gets there. Okay, So I'm gonna go back to last night. Me worrying, sending my son off. I'm worrying. There's so many reasons to worry. Sending an 18-year-old kid to a foreign country, okay? A country that is racked with terrorism, okay? Again, I know you have a kid there also, right? I mean, how do you sleep at night, Bonnie?
There's nothing I can do about it.
Exactly, okay? So you're telling me that I should stop worrying, basically.
Get over it.
Turn it over or turn it up, right? Turn it into a prayer. What can I do? I can't do anything, but the truth was, I never was able to do anything. Like a garbage truck.
Wow. Okay. I sent my kids 19th year of university. I was until she was in Turkey somewhere. And I woke up and I had a bad dream about her.
Oh gosh.
That was a long night.
Mm.
But other than that, it doesn't help.
Mm.
It makes me a wreck.
So yeah, I mean, easier to say than to actually put in. But let's just, Laura, you have a child that just went off to college. Where's your worry level? You're good? Wow, that's amazing. Okay. Any other worriers here? How you doing, Deborah? You're not good at all. Okay. Yeah. You're good? Yeah.
Where is a part of worry?
Feel like you're doing something. Right. Okay, so Deborah, you have a way to travel to get to there, okay, with all these women that have done it before you and let go and yes.
Don't worry.
Oh.
But I think what I learned about worrying, although it hasn't changed, my tendency is that when you look back at all the years you worried about something and those worries were never realized. So that was a lot of wasted effort, all that worrying and all the fear that I had, and then nothing ever happened. I wish I could like.
I want to read you something. I sent this to my kids. I said, it's like no one in my family appreciates that I stayed up all night overthinking for them. Mom. They didn't respond. But 100%. Yeah, it's just so perfect. So yeah. So
Clear. This is the first child for me going to college. I never had to worry about this one before. And that's just giving me reason to work. Never before.
So
Easy one.
from what I hear and from what I understand, right? I mean, your kids are married, grown, parents of their own. Do you still worry? Even more? Even more. My Bobby used to say, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems.
But then
There's
you
always
realize all the time and emotional energy you put into worrying when none of that ever. Right, then we never realize it's a lot of wasted.
Right. Okay. I want to jump into the book, but if there's, yes. that you'll cover them all. Yeah, I needed to call my mentor yesterday, Elisa Bulow. I was just such a wreck to the point where I was telling my son, I don't want you to go. Like, poor kid, like he's like 1 foot out the door and I'm like, don't leave me. And she's like, Eve, you're gonna be fine. It is painful to let a kid go, And you could be in that pain, you could mourn, you could cry, you could, but don't let him know. Like, just let him go. It'll never be the same, right? It really, like, you sometimes you can't turn back that dial. I found picture that I have a picture of my father with his hands on my head blessing me before I went to Israel at 18 years old. I never came home. I never came home. I stayed there for 12 years. I married and had 4 kids, but you know, I never came back to Toronto. It's been 25 years since I left home. So I knew deep down in my heart at that airport when he put his hands on my head and blessed me, it's never going to be the same. And that's just how it is. I mean, I'm so grateful that he let me go, right? Even though like they could have been selfish and they could have said, you have to come back home, right? But the greatest gift you could give your kids are wings to fly. And they don't really care. They don't. Yeah, I know. Okay, so let's bring this back. Okay, let's dive in over here. Okay, so just yes.
I think when you raise people and they're grown, and they have their own children, and they are being worried, is at least for me.
Right. And whether I mean, you probably have so much to share on this. You've really raised fabulous adults, and everyone here has. But there's this transition of going from like the director where you're like, this is what you should do now, everyone in bed, you know, like it's 6 p.m. it's bath time and bedtime, you know, and they actually listen. You know, you go through from there, all of a sudden you're a consultant, and consultants only get to speak when they're asked, right? So basically we become just like, shut your mouth, open your wallet, right? That's all we're good for. Yeah, we become an ATM machine. Like that's, I mean, of course, we hope for nachas and they give it to us at different, you know, they're not, but they're also not nachas machines. They're not there to give us nachas. We just need to, like, they're not ours, actually. They're not ours. God gave us this gift, this beautiful soul to nurture and to help and to, you know, mold and to put in all the love that we have. And then we have to let it go. Wherever that is, whatever it is, it's just like, we just need to be real with, like, it wasn't ours to begin with. Okay, so let's just bring this together. I quoted from the Torah that we need to find the right balance of effort and faith, okay? And then I reminded us all about this beautiful concept, this continuum of faith where we need to find ourselves on, okay? So let's bring those two, and now let's go look in this book and talk about this deeper level of faith called trust, bitachon. And I want to read to you what some of our sages are teaching us about this, written by Alan Murinis. So trust and faith are traits, are attitudes that we all want to get to, okay? None of us, not even you, Doris, and not even me, who's full-time warriors, okay? We don't want to be in a state of worrying, right? We want menuchas hanefesh, which is just tranquility and peace, like inner peace. Like we want to, like, it's not going to happen very easily for you and I. Like we're not the type to sit on a mountaintop, you know, like la 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 la, like meditating. It's not our nature. We're doers. We're busy. We're, you know, go go go. Right? There's natures, right? Some people could do it easily, but for some people, there's always a battle raging. And we've in another chapter, I can't remember which one, we actually said that is the goal. We don't ever want to come to a place of like, it's all good. That's not the goal. The goal is not to have a smooth, easy life. The goal is to grow. Okay. So we're going to, once again, balance, right? We have to find that balance. But our soul yearns to trust. Our soul yearns to trust. That is something that we're striving for. And you can't love until you trust. You can't love a human being unless you trust them. So trust is so fundamental. It's so important to come to a place in your relationship with people and in your relationship with your creator where you feel a sense of trust. So this is really, really, really important work. We don't want to live with anxiety and worry. We don't want it. It's always going to be laced into everything. But we want to, as much as we can, unshackle ourselves a little bit from that. And we want to live with trust. Okay, so what comes first, faith or trust? Do we understand the difference between the two? No? Would anyone like to explain what faith is? What's faith? Faith could be blind, right? Have you ever heard the term blind faith? Like emuna pashuta in Hebrew. Like, it's just like, that's something that our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, they had such a simple faith. They might not have been learned. They might not have even known how to read the Hebrew. They weren't scholars. The girls in pre-war Europe weren't going to Jewish schools. They weren't learning the Talmud. They weren't learning the Torah, right? But the women from that generation had such a strong faith about them. They didn't need to like see the source. It was something that was passed down through their mother's milk. Okay, so there's faith could be blind. It's something that you just feel. Now, could trust be blind? No, very different. Why? What's the main difference, Susie? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So to trust something, you need to understand it. You need proof. Give me proof. Right. Okay. Yeah, you have to be discerning, right? Deborah? Trust is earned. Okay. Well, I'm going to put something really hard down here. I don't want this to turn into like, a fight, but how can we trust God? Right? Lori, you and I, like we could talk from today until the end of our lives about how much pain we suffer being the children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. Like, where do you put that piece? 1 million children, innocent children, were murdered. 6 million Jews, 7 million Jews, the numbers keep rising. They keep on finding more mass graves. We don't even understand. And how could we trust when the world is crazy? There is so much pain in this world. And we have no answers. What did you say, Regina? You said something.
What choice do we have?
What choice do we have? Okay, but is that trust or is that faith? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm. Okay, I want to jump on that for a second. Okay, just help me here, Susie. What is the worst thing in our minds? What is the worst outcome that could ever happen to a person? Death, right? Like, that's when we think about all the tragedies and the atrocities and people dying before their time. Okay, but it's interesting that a lot of people, I heard death, right? Because that is, I mean, look at the fears, like, the top 10 fears. I mean, it's the top fear, right? There's loneliness, there's this, there's that. But at the end of the day, it usually comes down to like, so I'll tell you, so I don't have anxiety, right? Some people like really struggle, but there are times, like situational times, where I feel a lot of anxiety. And one of them was was a couple years ago. Jumping out of a plane last night. I basically, I started writing about it because I've been trying to process it. I feel like I jumped out of the plane with my son, and then the next day he literally came to me that night. Actually, he came and said, "Mom, do you mind if I go with my friends for an overnight? Can I borrow the car?" I'm like, "Who are you going with? What are you guys going to be doing?" After I heard all the details of who he's going with and what he's doing, giving him the car keys was much scarier than jumping out of the plane. 100%. Oh my gosh, I jump out of a plane any day rather than hands my car keys over to my son that I don't agree or approve of the people he's with or what they're going to be doing. I'm just saying, like, talk about worry and anxiety. I just have a teen and you, okay, so anxiety. So I went on a trip to Poland and Israel. I was actually preparing a lot for this trip. So I was reading and watching a lot of movies about the Holocaust. So it was definitely affecting me because I was seeing things in a very intense way. And I got to Israel, I got to Poland, and I was with Eliza Bulow, who it's very, very convenient to travel with your mentor, I must say. So I'm with her and I'm like having like a bit of a panic attack. And I said, I'm just so filled with anxiety right now. And she said, and it was because I had left my kids at home so far away and I was so far and I was having anxiety. What if the worrying, it was just taking over. So she did a very interesting exercise with me. She did the what if. What remember we spoke about this. What could happen? Like, what's the worst case scenario? And I'd come up with the worst thing that could happen. I mean, not to go down that rabbit hole. It's not so healthy to do that. But I said, and this could happen. And she said, and then what? And then this. And then what? And then this would happen. And then what? And really, really, as much as I took it down, the end result, the worst thing I could come up with was that I was going to die. Or someone else was going to die. Right? Because that's a very typical thing of what the worst thing could be. So in this book, so I'm going to try to find it, but unbelievable. He uses, oh, okay, get this. Okay, this is like 1,000 years ago. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, he says that what dying really means is that dying is like taking off an old overcoat. I had to like, what? Like it took me a little bit to understand, like, what is he saying? Not one of us can lay claim to creating him or herself, or when there is recognition that dying means giving up what was really never our own. There is nothing to fear. It's like taking off an overcoat. Like we believe that we are a soul that is clothed in a body that comes down for 80, 90, 100, 120 years max. Okay, the soul always was, the soul always will be. And our greatest fear is what happens at the end of this teeny, tiny part in this long, eternal life of our soul. We are paralyzed with that fear of what is inevitably going to happen to every single human being, because there's no way out of this world except through there, right? Every single person will die by 120. It's the only thing we are certain of. And yet that is the greatest fear. So I'm not really sure where this all falls in, right? How much are we putting in that area? How much fear should we put there when really maybe it's irrational? Like that's it. And then what? And then you go up to Shamayim, to the heavens, and you live the rest of your, eternity as a soul, the way that you started, and you're surrounded by all your loved ones and all the souls that are connected to you. It's hard for us when someone loses someone, we're in pain down here. But in the next world is the world of truth, right? It's not, this is the world of sheker, of falseness. So it's just, yes, Marcy. Yeah. What is like the only thing you could actually affect, the present. Oh, I love that. I love that. What is? Yeah, beautiful. Oh, what if like something amazing could happen, right? I love that. Yeah. What if everything goes as planned? Right? I love it. Oh, that, yeah. Yes, beautiful. Okay, so yes. Mm. Okay, but I love that. So the banana peel, the overcoat. I mean, one of my favorite analogies is like the scuba suit. Like the body's the scuba suit.
And not living.
Mm.
And mom.
Right. Yeah. So this is the world of action. So these 80 to 120 years, please God, everyone should get 120. But we're here because it was interesting. A friend of mine was struggling, called me yesterday, was falling apart on the phone. And she was saying what all the things that are not working well for her. And I said to her, she's probably close to 50 years old. I said, I guess you're going to have to stick around for another 70 years. Like, it's okay to struggle. That's why we're here. If we were perfect beings, we wouldn't be here. We'd be up, we'd be next to the angels, right? This is the world of action. This is the world to acquire and to do the good. And then in the next world, we reap the benefits. So thank you for bringing that in, because that's true. That's very, very practical. We have a mission here that we can't do in the other world. So that is the greatest fear. And actually, what Jewish sources tell us what hell actually is, when you go up and you experience some sort of hell that we don't understand. So hell really is seeing what you could have done and seeing the dissonance, or the, what's another word for dissonance? Like no, not the disconnect. You see who you could have been, the space, the lacking that you kind of have. There's like a vacuum, an empty space. I guess it's the failures, but it's more like it's the regret. But so once the missed opportunity, yeah. So that is hell. That is the agony of seeing God put you in this world with talents and resources and so much. Go do good, right? And then when you get up, that is hell. The hell is the pain of not doing more when you had the chance, right? And yeah,
there's a prayer on my holidays. God did not ask me God does not ask me why I am not like Moses.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not?
Yeah, he's gonna come. He's gonna say, "Why are you not Bonnie? Where's yeah, Bonnie? You could have been Bonnie, right?" Okay, so let's just go back into this. So yes,
we have such a certain about what happens once you take off the banana peel, the overcoat, whatever. And now you're going up to Shemayim, and now you're going to see the relatives and all that. It's going to be great. What about the relatives? A, we didn't get along.
That could be the hell.
But I think maybe a lot of people are very worried about that because you can't see. Maybe they've had a paranormal experience where someone has come back to them and done something and told them that everything's okay or whatever. Oh, I don't know what's happening. And perhaps
the unknown
a really good time
is so unknown is that we feel like we have no control. It's so unknown. There's no turning back. It's finite,
so
right?
A very strong trust in what's going to happen.
So I don't know what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen.
That you believe or you have trust.
Well, Judaism tells us that we believe in life after death. We believe in eternity. We believe in the soul. We believe in resurrection of the dead. that means your soul might even come back down in a body.
Somebody's worst.
You know, when my Babi Lola, my Babi Lola, my mom's mom, she died at 100 years old. And thank God. And after whatever, when Corona kind of quieted down, we had her unveiling, and we put all the names of her loved ones on the stone, because no one that came before her, not her siblings, her parents, not her, you know, no one had a name on a stone because everyone was murdered in the Holocaust. So there were many names on the stone. And we also put the names of her first husband before the war, right? And she was buried next to her third husband, okay, because my Zadie passed away from when I was 1 year old, and then she had chapter 3 of her life. So at one point during the Shiva, my mother and I, we were joking, it's going to be really interesting when she gets up there. Like, who is she? Because you're saying Bubby, we said Bubby is probably dancing in Shemayim, and we're like, well, who's she dancing with? You know? So we don't know. We don't know. But yeah, they're waiting in line. But so we only know what we do know, but talking about trust, like, first of all, it's so helpful that we have a little bit of understanding, because honestly, it's so much easier to go through this very difficult world with so much uncertainty, knowing that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Worst case scenario, it's still going to be okay. You are connected to something bigger than yourself, and you will always be connected to that. Okay, so I'm just going to go, I want to zoom into the book a little bit, because there's a lot of wisdom here. Does someone want to share? Yeah, Marsha?
Yeah, I was thinking, my cousin died in my cousin married my cousin, right? And she converted, and and like her funeral, her daughter, man.
Okay, can't run away from it. Interesting. Okay, I want to jump in. There's so much here. I mean, this is like such a powerful chapter, but I'm just going to read little bits. So he says, Alan Marinas, he says, we're caught between this familiar world of pain and loss on the one hand, and the alternative of mind-numbing predictability on the other hand. Of course, we don't really have that choice, because the world is as the world is. There's terrible things that happen all the time. But where you do have a choice is over how you elevate and respond to this world. So I put a really hard question down. We don't have an answer for the question, but I loved what Regina said. What's the alternative? Like, what you're not going to believe because there's pain, you're not going to believe, you're just going to throw it out, throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We'd rather find a place of believing. We'd rather get to a place where we could trust, because that's honestly, without trust, what do we have, right? So I'm going to famous quote Viktor Frankl, who is an incredible author of Man's Search for Meaning, okay? Viktor Frankl, one of his famous quotes, I'm going to put it down here, says like this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in that response lies our growth and our freedom. This is where it's all at. We cannot change the world. We cannot change the fact that bad things happen, okay? All we could do is choose our response. It's such a powerful quote. This is mind-blowing, right? Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. And in that response lies our growth and our freedom. That's where we're liberated. That's where we actually excel over animals, that we could choose. We have free will, whether we're going to trust, whether we're not going to trust. Not trusting is not an easier path. Not believing is not an easier path. In fact, every time I go through something hard, I say, how do people get through life without faith? If I didn't have faith right now, I would fall apart. So it's a choice. Okay. So I'm gonna put some pretty big things down here, because we as Jews, we always want to be in a space of happiness, right? Like, you know, mitzvah gedola lihiyot b'simcha tamid. It's a great mitzvah to always be happy, okay? But the goal of life is not happiness. And this is really, really important, because this will help us understand the chaos and doubt between the conflict of faith and you know, our path, right? We want to be happy and fulfilled, but that is not the goal of life. It's not the goal. It's not our job description to become happy, okay? For example, right? What would make someone happy? I don't know, not one of us, because I think we're much more evolved than this. But take a regular Joe Schmo off the street, and I would say, I want to make you happy. What could I give you in the whole entire world to make you happy? What do you say, Bonnie? Money. Like money, enough money for the rest of your life. Okay, you would $1 million, $10 million. Okay, $1 million is nothing nowadays.
Not anymore.
Right. Okay, $10 million. Is this person now happy? No, not at all.
What do you mean only 10 million?
In fact, I don't know. I may or may not have a bad habit of reading the tabloids on my way out of the grocery store, but you just have, right? You know, I mean, just the headlines are enough to prove this. People that have endless amounts of wealth do not have happiness. Okay, so if we're looking for happiness, it's just what is happiness? What is happiness? Because God is telling us, Judaism is saying, our goal is not to be happy. That's not the goal. Yes.
Health, yes, an absolute. I know plenty of people with tremendous wealth. They are very happy.
Oh, really? Wow. Amazing.
I guess it's easier, everybody gets sick, right? But I guess it's easier when you have money to be sick than when you afford to be sick. But going back to what you said, they follow these people who win lottery.
Yeah.
Most of them, yeah. So they should give it to me.
You'll be their consultant. Okay.
I'll manage it just fine.
Okay, so I hear that. I don't know what it's like to be in their shoes, okay? And that I'm so happy for people that are happy and have everything they need, okay? But I think that's the exception and not the rule. I think so. Unless Hollywood is showing us something different, but the amounts of suicides in all these successful, wealthy people, it doesn't make sense otherwise. What is going on that there's such a hole that they're trying to fill that they can't fill, right?
But if you use the word just out of your habit, that you're so happy for everyone that has everything they need. We're not talking about need. People who have everything they need and are not wealthy are really happy to hear them talk about it.
Because what is wealth?
It's
Ezehu
not.
Ashir, who said this, Hasameach Bechalko. Who is wealthy? He who is content with his lot. That's rich.
You're talking about Hollywood. I think you're talking about press. Actors are narcissists.
And they're so
So that's a very different. Somebody with like, that's a very different.
Well, it's
That's
interesting.
not
A week or two ago, Allie and I, we had a session here with some women, and we were talking about finding your mission. And one of the questions that I put out was, if you had $5 billion, or no, I think we said 5 million. Okay, I think I said, if you had $5 million and 6 hours a day of leisure time that you could do whatever you want with your time and your money, what would you do? That answer might show you what your mission is and what will bring you fulfillment. So Allie said to me afterwards, she said, Eve, I don't know if that holds true to everyone, because some of the women sitting in front of us may have a couple $1 million and they're still struggling to find what their mission
I'm
is.
not saying money makes you happy. I'm saying that it doesn't make, like what she said, that you have a lot of money. It doesn't make you unhappy.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I like that. Okay, so I want to read you this. Okay, so Jewish tradition tells us that the pursuit of happiness is not our goal. What is the pursuit? What is it all about? Okay, so this is it. Judaism advises us not to seek happiness, but to recognize instead that we are meant to be servants of God. Okay, there's a recognition. So recognize what it's all about. Okay, and from that vantage point, the world seems a rather fitting place to live, even with all its shocks and sorrows, because you're able to weather storms, because it's not about happiness. It's about, what am I meant to do right now in this time and space? God, what do you want from me? So, and I'll just read one more line over here. We know from experience that we can't rely on life to deliver everything we want or even need. But it is certain that we can rely on life to give us the challenges that are fitting to the life of a servant. It's like a shift. Hold on a second. And I don't know how you guys feel about feeling like you're a servant to God or to a higher power. Not everyone is okay with that, right? Some people really, even the word mitzvah, right? Such a beautiful word, to do a good deed. The word is translated as commandment. No one wants to be commanded to do anything nowadays. We're very, very, no, it's not even independent. We're a generation that we don't like. Maybe in self-righteous. We don't want to be told what to do. We're kind of fragile. When it comes to someone telling us what to do, we fall apart. We're like, and that's exactly what it says here. Kochi va'atzum yadi, that you're going to think that it's all you that got you this wealth, that made you this life. God's like, that's not true. Don't lose sight. Don't think that it's you. It's not you. And it's really, really important. So this Rabbi Eden Pakuda, he says, one who trusts in God neither worries nor laments. She is free of worldly cares and lives in perpetual repose, security, and tranquility. He is pleased with everything, even if it goes against his grain. Okay? When you accept that being a servant of God is your job description, then trust is warranted and God can be trusted and life works. Okay. So we're talking about security here. So let's just use this word for a second. I know that, do you have to leave? Okay. We're going to go for a few more minutes if that's okay. Are you guys okay? Started a few minutes late? Okay. So let's talk about security, okay? How many insurances can there possibly be, right? Health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, household insurance, like possessions, travel. There's dozens others, just Google it, right? Right, what? Okay, practice interruption insurance, earthquake insurance, okay? I mean, and there's probably dozens more, okay? And this is such a big part of who we are and what we do. We try to get insurance because we're grappling and desperate for a sense of what? Security. Control, security, right? It's almost like every time I get insurance for a child, goes to camp, whatever, goes out of state, out of country, we're like, and I always say, like, okay, now that we got the insurance, nothing will happen. It's like, right? It's like Murphy's Law. If you don't have it, you're going to be like, but you just want to get it you need that sense of security. Okay, so going back to this word bitachon, security. Where are we putting our trust? What actually gives us security? Is it the, okay, but we also bringing in that effort versus faith and trust. So there has to be, you have to buy the insurance, right? You need that, but you also need to know that that's not where your security lies. Okay, so I'll tell you guys, wow. I mean, I don't know if I should be embarrassed to say this here. I'm very like, what you see is what you get. You know, I have kids that are already almost 20 years old, been married for a while. We've lived life for a long time, thank God. It's been a beautiful journey. We have never had any security, not job security in this line of work. It changes, communities change, ebb and flow, right? Never owned and lived in a house that, like, never lived in a house that we owned, right? Never, always renting. In Portland, the house that we rented for 7 years, we rented month by month. She wouldn't even rent it for a year at a time. So to settle 8 people in a house and every single month check in to say, are you sure? Because she was like, I might sell it. So for 7 years, we lived in that state of insecurity. Like, could you imagine not being able to plant seeds and to like put in a new window because you don't know how long you're going to stay there? You know what I mean? So we lived with a broken window for 7 years because, like, who's going to put in money into a house that you don't know if you're going to have it even next month? I don't know why Hashem gave us that lot. I don't think it's the normal way, but it's a great exercise in trying not to rely on worldly things, because you just don't know. You just don't know what's coming. And you realize after a while, if you live in this kind of crazy place, that there's only one thing that you could rely on. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something else. And you know, we've shared so much. I mean, some people are new here, so they're like, oh my gosh, this is like therapy 101. But we went through a hard time in Portland before we left. And just with an individual, like, dynamics. It was a hard situation and it kind of pushed us to rethink what we're doing there. And we ended up leaving and moving. And I remember calling a Rebbitzin in Israel, and I told her the details of what we were going through. And this is what she said. Okay, this is so magnificent, and we could all apply this to any hardship in our life. I told her what happened, to our specifics, the details, and she said, Eve, she gets calls from people all over the world. Right? She's a sought after person that gives advice. And she said, it's as if you and the last 100 people that called me have told me the same story again and again and again. There's different details, right? It's always different dynamics. But what again and again she hears is that the people and the institutions and the things that we put our faith and our trust in let us down. She says different details, but it's the same story again and again. That people, or whatever it is, has let you down. That you thought you could put so much trust in whatever it was, and it didn't work out. It was really empty. There was nothing there. When push came to shove, they weren't there for you. When push came to shove, they didn't stand up to their integrity. They weren't the people that you thought they were, right? Like I'm a very trusting person. So words that I would often say when talking about great people, I would say things like, let's put it on bigger shoulders. That was my way of saying, I'm trusting someone to make the right decision. And then what happens? What happens to your world when the people that you're leaning on let you down, right? Your whole sense of, what does this mean? What is it all about? How could they be hypocritical? How could they be? How could they? It boggles your mind and it shakes you to your core. So what she taught me, which is literally the lesson that I want to carry for the rest of my life, because even in the hardest things we go through, there are gems and lessons that are the gift. And there's a reason that you go through them. It's for the gifts. So the gift of this lesson, and this is what she taught me, she said, when everyone lets you down and you put your faith in whatever it is and it's not there, it's just totally, totally lost, you realize that there's only one thing you could trust in God. Everyone will let you down, and this will happen again and again. I'm sure it's not going to be the last time. But she said, you need to know that you are not alone, that you are walking humbly with God, even in the darkness, even in the hardest things that you'll go through, right? You have yourself, your integrity, right? As Viktor Frankl said, you have your choice in that moment. No one could take that away from you. And you have God, you have your higher power. You could get through anything. That's the trust. That's bitachon, because no one could take that away from you. You know, that story from the Holocaust where they're shooting these Hasidim into a pit, terrible story. And they're literally like cutting their payas and taking off everything that is theirs, their identity, right? As Hasidic Jews. And then this Chassid, it's written in the Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust by Yafa Eliach. So beautiful story how this Chassid, he started singing and singing. He was singing, how fortunate am I? Like these words that it doesn't make sense for what's going on in front of him. Everyone, there's death all around him and he's singing and singing. And the Nazis were hitting him, beating him, saying, stop singing. Like, this is terrible. Like, you know, we'll hit you harder. And he just sang louder and louder because he realized that they could take everything away from him. They could strip him away from his family, could strip everything off of him, but they can never take away his faith. That's one thing that no one could ever take from you. No one could ever take away your faith. And until he died, he had his faith intact. Kind of crazy, right? We think people out there have so much power over us, when really we have all the power. We have our own power. How we walk in this world, regardless of what happens around us, it's ourselves, what we choose to hold inside of ourselves, faith, trust, whatever, worry, we can choose that, right? We're going to choose what we're walking with and holding on to a higher power. We can do anything. So I think I'm going to end here. Maybe I'll end with a quote. Okay, I'll just end with this. I think this is actually very practical, okay? If you're going to take home one nugget, take home this, okay? Bitachon, security, this trust, gives us the capacity to act from a place of no fear. So hear this. A heart cannot hold both fear and trust at the same time. A heart cannot hold fear and trust at the same time. When we cultivate trust, we inevitably loosen the grip fear holds on our heart. Fear stifles and consoles to the detriment of ourselves and to the world. So if we want to trust, right, we need to loosen the grip of fear, okay? If we want to love, we need to tighten the group of trust, the grasp of trust. We can't love without trust. Makes sense, right? You cannot love someone that you do not trust. You need to work on that. You need to develop and cultivate that, okay? So love needs trust. And in order to have trust, we need to let go of fear. They're really big stuff. But we're going to end here and know that we're going to have an amazing year together of growth and learning. And in the next 4 weeks, as Rosh Chodesh is coming upon us, it's on Friday, the new month of Elul. So everything for the next month from now until Rosh Hashanah is going to have a little bit of Elul introspection for us to all kind of be working towards the high holidays. Okay, so it's going to be very focused, but we'll carry on with this. And just one announcement before we go. I know I'm keeping you guys so late, but Sunday, we are having a workshop here from 11 till 12:30. The author of this book is coming to lead the workshop for us. And it is a workshop that will help us all step into our gifts. Okay, we all have gifts, we all have talents. It's going to be geared at helping us figure out what our gifts are and how to step into them. This is a workshop that could be for women of all ages. If you want to bring someone, if you want, we're going to have a light, we'll have light refreshments. It's like kind of like a little brunch. And the author is going to be doing this workshop. There's going to be different things. We're going to be writing. We're going to be moving around. Don't worry, no neshama dance for those of you that, no, not that type of moving around. But it's going to be really, really great and very timely. Okay, so that is on Rosh Chodesh on Sunday here, 11 till 12:30. And I look forward to seeing you all. So we do have these books. If anybody wants to take one and read it, you'll understand who this author is. You're welcome to take a copy. You get a copy free. It's $18 for the whole program, including the book. We're not charging, and it's just we're giving it to you at cost. And that's it. So Sunday, I hope you guys will come. For some reason, 30 people took books, but only 2 people registered. So I'm hoping, which is fine, take the books, but actually come, okay? So Sunday here. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Mwah. You're welcome. Good to see you. Hi, how are you? So cute.
I don't have any.
Let me just, oh, so good to see you. I'm so glad. How do I end this? Okay, end meeting.